So our theme today is just this idea of awakening to a new day. And so Monday morning practice after the weekend, after perhaps some playful and joyful and alternate activities on the weekend. But in truth, we have the opportunity to awaken to a new moment all the time. So I want to just start with a poem by David Whyte. The sound of a bell still reverberating, or a blackbird calling from a corner of a field, or a blackbird calling from a corner of the field, asking you to wake into this life, or inviting you deeper into the one that waits. Asking you to wake into this life, or inviting you deeper to one that waits. Either way takes courage. Either way wants you to be nothing but that self that is no self at all. Wants you to walk to the place where you find you already know how to give every last thing away. The approach that is also the meeting itself without any meeting at all. That radiance you have always carried with you as you walk both alone and completely accompanied in friendship by every corner of the world crying, Hallelujah. I think it can be particularly challenging when we have so many things going on in our world. I resisted that word unprecedented at the beginning of COVID, but I think maybe unprecedented right now might feel like the right word, because not only do we have a pandemic, we have the Western United States on fire, we have changes in politics that will affect us for years. We do have a lot going on, and there is this underlying sort of anxiety and edginess that we might be all feeling. And I think how we wake every day and how we wake every moment is particularly important right now. We have choices about how we wake and how we step into the next day, the next portion of our life. So come to your back on your mat. And I think we all know that if it's in the body, it's in the mind. And if it's in the mind, it's in the body. That those things are connected. So just get comfortable on your back, roll out the wrinkles, find a comfortable position. And then bring your attention to the inner landscape of your body. Just bring your attention inward, away from any outer sensibilities. And as you do this, simultaneously, with one hand, make a fist. And as you do this, visualize a spark in your brain that allows you to do that action. So you might relax your hand and then try it again. So yeah, just make a fist and then imagine the spark in your brain necessary to do that. Okay. And now just tune in to a personal desire, a personal wish. Or one that's a little bit bigger than personal, maybe for the state of things in our world. But tune into a desire. Where do you feel that in your body? How do you hold the brain-body connection? And then just release that effort now and stretch out your legs long. I'm going to move to my mat now. Hopefully you have your props. I didn't name the props, but hopefully you have a block or two and a belt. But stretch out long on your mat. You could have your legs in the Tadasana position, or you could have your legs wide, more of an X position. But just feel the floor supporting you here as you take a few rounds of breath. And then bring both feet to the right corner of your space or your mat, and bring both arms overhead to the same corner. So you're opening up through the left side of your body. And just take a few rounds of breath on this side before you switch to the other side. So feet to the left corner and arms over to the left corner. Coming back to center. Reach through now your feet straight, feet lined up in Tadasana. Reach through your heels and reach your arms away. So now just like you're a piece of taffy being pulled apart. And then you can relax your arms down to your sides in the goalpost position and bend your knees, taking the soles of your feet to the floor and just letting your knees glide softly back and forth, right to left. And as you continue this pattern, just really explore again what would be aesthetically or kinesthetically pleasing to you right now to do in your body. So maybe when the knees fall to the right, the left arm extends. When the knees to the left, the right arm extends. But maybe you also feel like bringing your knees all the way over to one side and bringing your arms together on the same side. So just flow through a little bit of organic movement, following the desire of your body. Allow the breath to initiate the movement. And allow the breath to be just a little bit longer than the movement. So it is a container for the movement. And we'll meet back in a position of comfort. So feet, soles of the feet on the floor, knees bent. And here, let's take the right leg long now, arms in the goalpost position. And then draw the left knee across midline. Your left hip will pick up. You'll feel an arch in the back. And then you might reach the left arm up as well. So keep the inside of the left foot planted on the floor. And then as you exhale all that down, bring your arm back to the goalpost position. Foot back on the floor, knee pointing up to the ceiling. Do a couple of rounds just like that. Your left shoulder can come up off the floor. And just explore this action in the pelvis, low back. You should feel a nice stretch even in the left armpit here. Again, let the breath initiate the movement and let the breath contain the movement. And the next time you're back to center, switch, take the right foot to the floor, left leg long, arms in the goalpost. Same thing as you inhale, draw the right knee across your body, right arm stretches long, and then relax everything or exhale everything back to the starting position. See if you can keep the entire inside of your right foot on the floor as you come across. And then we'll come back to the starting position, the position of comfort. And here, just take your hands onto the top of your thighs, press your thighs away, and just feel a little arch underneath your back. And on your next exhale, draw everything in without touching your low back to the floor. So the inhale, you create just a little more arch in the low back. And on the exhale, gather the navel up and in, gather the sides of the waist in, and just really tighten there. And just that little pattern. And then we'll release the hands to the side of the body. And on your next inhale, press into your feet and lift. And we'll take the arms behind you. Keep your chin pointing up a little bit towards the ceiling so you keep the cervical spine, the arch in the cervical spine. And then as you lower down, you can have the arms coming down at the same time as the spine. Have your hips touch the floor. And find that little neutral spine again. So begin to just arch away from the floor, pressing into your feet and lifting. Do a few rounds, initiating with the breath and letting the breath be the container. Now you could switch this up by pressing and just lifting one arm. So say you take the right arm behind, turn your gaze to the left, and then sweep the right arm back to center along the floor like you're making a snow angel. Bring your head back to center, hips back to the floor. Press and lift the left arm, turn your gaze to the right, and then as you lower, you sweep the left arm along the floor like you're making a snow angel. Head back to center, hips back to the floor. Either of those movements is fine. Just really, really be curious about what your body would like right now, right at this moment. Maybe you leave your arms behind you and you extend all the way through your spine. Great, we'll meet back in a position of comfort. So soles of the feet on the floor. And then just take your hands to your hip pointers. So the heel of your hands to your hip pointers, fingers pointing in towards one another. And here just feel for a levelness of your pelvis on the floor. So keep your hands there. We'll take the right leg up towards the ceiling. Sole of the foot points towards the ceiling. Left knee is bent. And just move that leg out to the right, only as far as both sides of the pelvis can remain on the floor, touching the floor. So you don't want the left side of your pelvis picking up. And then you'll draw the leg across center, cross the knee underneath. So the right leg's going to the left and the left knee's going to the right. And then come back, open up. So the angle of your legs, right leg extended, left knee bent, the angle is the same, and both sides of the pelvis are touching the floor. Then bring the right leg across midline, left knee across midline. And then go ahead and drape your right leg over your left leg. And draw your knees up towards your chest, taking the front of the shins with your hands. Now here, even though you're pulling your knees in strongly, can you create just a little bit of more of a neutral pelvis? So a little bit of a forward tilting of the pelvis as if you were trying to pick the low back off the floor. Just a little, like enough to put a sliver of paper underneath. Good. And then unwind, take your feet back to the floor. Left leg extends towards the ceiling. Pull your toes back towards your shins. Right knee is bent. Same thing. The left leg will go out to the left, the right knee out to the right, only as far as you can keep your pelvis level on the floor. So if you feel the right side of the pelvis tilting up, back off with the left leg. And then draw the left leg across midline and the right knee towards the left. We'll do that another time. So really keeping the pelvis nice and level, building some strength and musculature there, and then come across with the left leg, right knee comes under. And then you'll drape your left leg over your right and draw your knees in towards your chest. Maybe this side's got a little more freedom. Intend your low back off the floor slightly. So you have more of a neutral spine than a total backward tilt in the pelvis, more of a neutral pelvis. Good. And then unravel. Take both legs. This is where you might want your strap. And take both feet in the strap and press your feet into the strap so that your legs are about in the Dandasana shape, so more or less perpendicular to the floor. Good. Now, feel again your low back touching the floor. Can you tilt your pelvis just a little bit forward or away from the floor? So you could put a sliver of paper underneath. Yeah. Now, feel for the opening behind your knees being as even as possible. So all 10 toes are pulling back towards the shins equally. And your knees are opening as equally as possible. Just take a couple of breaths here. And then you can slip your left foot out, keep your right foot in the strap, and the left leg could go long or it could stay bent. And just bring your right knee into your chest and extend out. And just as rhythmic pattern as you as quickly or slowly as you like. Really check in with yourself. As you inhale and exhale, right knee comes in towards the chest and then extends. So you're flexing at the hip, flexing at the knee. You might even have a little ankle movement there. The next time you're extended up towards the ceiling, switch the feet and work the other leg. Maybe this leg feels a little tighter today. And then you can set the belt over to the side and take your arms out to T, legs long. Internally rotate the arms so that your palms touch the floor. Externally rotate, palms up towards the ceiling and maybe even back behind you a bit. And then just work that movement a few times. Feel the feedback from the floor, what's happening in the shoulders as you internally and externally rotate your arms. If it's uncomfortable for your legs to be straight, you could have your knees bent and your knees, your soles of your feet on the floor, knees resting together. Good. And then bring your hands right above your heart. Interlace your hands, interlace your fingers, and press your palms up towards the ceiling. And then draw both hands to the left, stretching through your palmar fascia. And then draw both hands to the right. And move back and forth in that way. Just really touching pretty much everywhere here as we open to this new day or this new week or this new moment. And then the next time you bring your hands above your head, bring your arms behind you as per your capacity. Maybe your arms can come all the way to the floor. Reach away, stretch through both side bodies. So you even here, you might drop one hip down and then the other hip down. So just, I've got my knees bent doing this. You could have your legs straight, but I create this space in my waist, in my side body, as I sort of slide one hip away from the same rib cage. Good. Come back to center now. Cross at the ankles or turn to one side and press yourself up. And we'll come now to all fours. So roll through some cat-cows with your breath. Allow the breath to initiate the movement and be the container. So on the inhale, the heart slides forward, the hips or the buttocks open, flare, belly stretches towards the floor, gaze is up, broaden through the pelvis, the pelvic area, the buttocks, and on the exhale, press into your hands around through your spine and pull your tailbone into your body a little tighter. So the beauty of a container is actually that it gives us freedom. So with both hands and knees on the floor, we create what we call a closed posture. And that is a container. The breath is also the container, and this actually gives us freedom to move in our body. So you might press out to the sides as you continue your cat-cows. Check in with yourself and see what might feel nice to you right now in your body. If it's too much for the wrists, you can always come down to the forearms. Meeting yourself where you are and where you need to be right now. And then from the next time you press into your hands or your forearms, drop your hips back towards your heels, come all the way back into the child's pose. Reach your arms out into a T. And now really secure one hand to the floor as if it's stuck with a whole bunch of sticky glue. And then reach your fingertips of the other hand, start to walk the fingertips away. You won't go very far. Maybe you can sort of claw at your floor or your carpet. But the hand that is stuck, you'll feel a stretch in that armpit and in the inside of that arm. And then you can try going the other way. So other hand is stuck like it's glued to the floor. You just start to move your torso in the other direction. Maybe try to walk the fingers of the other arm away and feel a big opening underneath your armpit. And then try that one more time in each direction. One hand very secure, the other trying to walk away. It'll be a very teeny movement. Great, and then come back to center and interlace your hands at your sacrum and start to press into your shins as you come up. Hardly any weight on the head, but you'll be in a position where the top of your head's on the floor and the shins, and then bring your arms off your back. Let gravity bring them as far forward as possible. And then release your hips back to your heels. Press into your hands and come up to sitting on your heels and grab a block. So with the block in the orientation, the long orientation, you're going to set the block between your ankles. So you'll come back to hands and knees and you'll squeeze the block between your ankles. Squeezing the block between your ankles, now lift your feet off the ground and then back down. Oh, you might get a very sudden cramp like I just did. I got it in my calf, which was odd because this is kind of a hamstring workout. But you're going to lift the block up and back down and maybe do 6 to 8 repetitions and see if you can keep the block as steady as possible. So it's not sort of oscillating back and forth. So you're pressing into the block with your ankles and lifting. Body, pelvis in a neutral position. So don't borrow from the lower back by overarching as you do this. Just keep the body, the pelvis in a neutral position. Core engaged, so pull the navel up and in. And then the next time you drop the block down to the floor, set your sit bones back onto the block. Now, same thing here. Just check in with your pelvis, your low back. So we don't want an excessive arch of the low back, and we don't want to be slumping into our back. Let's see if you can find a neutral pelvis, and then inhale the right arm up and over. And take an extra breath here to work the pose. So on the exhale, feel for grounding into your sit bones, and on the inhale, feel for opening along the side body. And if you need another block on the side, you could have your other block for the hand that's on the floor. And then on the next inhale, you'll come up, exhale to the other side. Just move your block with you. Or whatever works in your body. But feel for your sit bones reaching down so there's a grounding while there's an opening. So both of those things working. The oppositional forces of both lifting and grounding. And then just do one more on each side. So inhale back to center. Exhale to drop into the floor with the opposite hand, and then one breath cycle to work it. Next inhale brings you up and over. And then back to center. And then come forward onto your knees and just take your block and move it to the front of your mat. Coming back to all fours now. Couple cat-cows just to find the neutral pelvis, neutral spine once again. And then turn your toes under. See if you can get all 10 toes under, or at least 8, maybe 7. And then lift your knees off the floor and press your hips back so the knees stay bent here, and then gradually you can straighten through the legs coming into the downward facing dog. Here you could drop one heel to the ground as you keep the other knee bent, and then move back and forth in that way, just opening the calves, Achilles tendon. And then come back to center and walk your feet a little closer to your hands so you're in a really short downward dog stance. And bend deeply through the left knee and take your right hand to the outside of your left lower leg, and then straighten that leg and allow for a little twist. You might even take your head under your left armpit. And then come back with the right hand, bend through the right knee, bring your left hand to the outside of your right lower leg, and then straighten that leg. And then take your left hand back, walk your feet back, open up your stance. Then on your next inhale, rock forward into the High Dandasana. Now, press your upper back towards the ceiling and press through your heels. And you're going to sort of launch yourself a little bit forward, like you're going to peer over the edge of the short edge of your mat. And then bring both knees to the floor, keeping your upper body where it is, bend through the elbows and come all the way down to the floor. Great. Stretch through your legs, bend at the knees, and slowly move your feet back and forth, releasing any tension in the low back. Okay. And then this next part might be a little bit tricky, but you're going to take your block back down to your feet, same position, and you're going to bring the block between the ankles again. So you could have your hands stacked one on the other and rest your forehead on your arms. But now you're going to try to lift the block again, and then lower it back to the floor, and see how steady you can keep the block here as you squeeze it between your ankles. Notice if you have lost the contraction in the abdominals, and draw your navel up and in. See if you can keep the oscillating to a minimum, that little fishtailing. So working the hamstrings here. This last time up, see if you can flex at the ankles as if you were standing on the ceiling, and then maybe you can pick your knees up off the floor just slightly. Engage the glutes, and then lower back down. You can let the block go and sort of kick it out of the way. Good. Bring your elbows underneath your shoulders in the Sphinx pose. Reach through the legs, draw the navel up and in so the navel's off the floor. Now you could rest your head here, bring your chin in towards your chest, and slide your chin from one shoulder or one edge of the clavicle, the collarbone, to the other, just pressing your pubic bone into the floor and drawing your navel up and in. Good. And then we'll lower down. We'll do just a couple of locust lifts. So forehead into the floor, Draw the head of your humerus, so shoulders come up off the floor. Reach the palms towards the ceiling as if you're pressing your palms into the ceiling. Lift your head and shoulders. Draw your navel as if you're kind of trying to pick your navel off the floor. So navel up and in, and then you could reach the legs out behind. So neck stays long. You're just looking off the front of your mat. And then you can release and take one cheek to the mat or temple to the mat and softly rock your hips back and forth. And then you can turn your gaze or your head back to center, forehead to the floor, and move that same way. And if you want it to be a little bit more fierce, you could bring your arms out to the T or even out in front. Notice what happens if you do that. If you get cranky in the low back, probably want to back off, press into the pubic bone a little bit harder, draw the navel up and in. And be really aware of what is going to be best for your body. Dropping yourself down to the floor, turn your head the other direction, and softly rock your hips back and forth. Coming back to center, take your hands underneath your shoulders, press yourself up. Wait here just for one breath and table. And then on the next exhale, lower your hips back towards your heels. Inhale, come back to table with a slight cow position or shape, and then turn your toes under. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, walk your feet up to your hands. Keep your knees bent here. Fingertips on the floor. And reach the crown away, reach your crown away from your pelvis. So there's lots of length in the back. So you don't have to be parallel to the floor, just lots of length in the back. And then bending your knees, take your hands to your hips, elbows in, hinge up at the waist. Come to standing. Good. Great. And in standing, just drop your hands alongside your bodies in Tadasana. And we're going to do a few rounds of really working with the opposite forces in our body, the opposition in our body. So on your inhale, draw your arms up, just the way you would just normally. Just inhale the arms up, and then exhale, arms down. Do that just a few times. Just inhale, arms, sweep the arms up, and exhale, let the arms come down. Now, the next time you inhale the arms up, feel for really grounding through your legs into the floor. So as you inhale up, ground down. Now, as you exhale the arms, feel the lifting of the heart, the spine, and the crown. So exhale down, but lift at the same time. So inhale is our expansive movement. So we're expanding, but feel the feet and the legs grounding at the same time. The exhale is our grounding breath, but feel for lifting through the spine at the same time. And remember the part between your eyebrows and the top of your head. Lift that as well. Couple more rounds. See if you can really connect to that opposition. Great. Now we'll try it with a standing posture. So we'll take our feet wide on the mat. And turn one foot out. Pick up the back foot, turn the heel out so that you have your leg set up for the open hip position. And then drop your front knee into a warrior two feet. And keeping the arms at the waist for a couple of times, just inhale to extend the front leg, but keep the grounded feeling. And then exhale to come down into the front knee, but feel for the upper body staying lifted. The next time you bend through the front knee, extend your arms out in the T position, so the traditional warrior two. And then on your inhale, extend through your legs, extend your arms up, but feel the grounding of your feet and legs. As you exhale and you ground back down, can you keep the upper body lifted and light? Try that a few times. Remember the top of the head. That helps me feel lifted, actually, when I remember that from my eyebrows up is often forgotten. So lifting through the crown helps me lift through the spine. We'll meet in warrior two. Flip the front palm and inhale to come back into exalted warrior. Feel the grounding through your legs, but the lightness, the lifted, especially in this upper arm, the front arm, as you open that side body. Inhale to reach back towards warrior two, and exhale your front forearm down on your front knee, backhand on your hip. Feel the grounding here. Press into your forearm so that you can lift away from the leg. And then on your next inhale, sweep your top arm up and over, creating length from the back foot all the way through the hip, side body, and into the front hand. Take about 3 rounds of breath here. With each exhale, feel grounded through the feet and legs. And through each inhale, light in the upper body, length in the upper body. Draw the navel up and in. And on your next inhale, sweep your top arm up, straighten the front leg, turn both legs, or turn both feet to line up parallel to one another in the short edge of your mat. Inhale here, reach the arms up, but draw the legs down. Exhale, fold, taking your hands to a block or to the mat. You could have your head all the way down on a block if you wanted to do a little more of an inversion. And then we'll all inhale, press into the hands and reach the crown of your head towards, away from you, so away from your hips. So there's length between the head and the pelvis. And that might bring the weight a little forward in your feet, to the balls of the feet, which is great. Great. And then whatever serves you best here, you might heel toe your feet together a little bit, bend through the knees, hands to the hips, press up. And then we'll open the stance again, take the opposite foot out, pick up the back heel, turn the back heel out. Again, so now we're in the warrior two legs. And with your hands on your hips, inhale to feel a lifting, a lightness through your upper body while you stay grounded. exhale, draw the front knee bent and feel this groundedness, but that lifting continues. So playing with those oppositions. We'll land in warrior two. Reach the arms out. Now, even here, feel really this groundedness. So how do we get that groundedness in the legs? Well, you kind of are, it's almost like you're pulling your feet together isometrically. You're drawing muscle onto bone, but the heart is lifted. There's length in the spine. And then on your next inhale, you'll press into the front foot, straighten, reach the arms up, but don't lose the groundedness of the legs. And we'll move back and forth here. We'll meet in warrior two. Flip the front palm and inhale back to exalted warrior. Backhand rests on the upper thigh. Feel the length through the side body as you ground the feet. And then as the inhale comes, next inhale comes, you lift out of that front arm and set the forearm on the leg, front forearm on the front leg. Really press into your forearm to allow the shoulder to come out of the ear, so you have lots of space in your neck. And then inhale the top arm up and over. Feel length from the back heel all the way through the top hand. Notice where you feel like you want to give up or get complacent or lazy. Sometimes it's the upper shoulder, sometimes the core, so you kind of fall forward. So draw your navel up and in. Then on your next inhale, you'll sweep the top arm up as you straighten the front leg, turning both feet to face one another and the short edge of your mat. Draw your tailbone into your body here slightly. Just draw it into your body. Draw your navel up and in, and then fold forward. And once again, you could have your hands on a block, really working on the length through the spine, crown of the head away from the pelvis. You could come all the way over, resting your head on a block here in an inversion. Let's see if you can keep the pelvis in a neutral shape, so you're not rounded and tucking the pelvis under, but the pelvis is neutral or slightly moving forward. And then take one hand right underneath your sternum, and inhale, sweep the opposite arm up, moving from the thoracic, the middle of your back, into this twist. Can you feel both the groundedness in your feet and the length through the top hand? Release and take the other side. And again, move from the middle of your back, so where the kind of the low ribs are, up. So not too much movement in the lumbar spine, in the lower back. Can you feel, is there a constriction here? So now we're not fully contained because we have a free arm, right? So this is a different kind of container. You let the breath help you maintain this container. And coming back to the center position now. From here, walk your hands out so that you're in a downward dog with the upper body and the legs are wide. Draw muscle to bone. Really tighten up through the legs, but can you feel some lightness in the heart space area? A liftedness there. Walk your hands back towards your feet, heel toe your feet together, and as soon as it becomes a forward bend, just bend through the knees and then drop your hips back as if you're going to sit in a deep squat, taking your arms on the front of your knees, your hands in front of the knees, and go ahead all the way into the squat and then come to a seat. And here, just a hip balance of your choice. So you could just be really tight. You could have the hands on the hamstrings. You could take peace fingers on the big toes and come into your hip balance here. You could be in Navasana boat. Wherever you are, draw the navel up and in and intend to draw the low back in towards your spine. It is your spine, but draw your low back in towards the middle of your body. Great. And then wherever we are, we're just going to bring our feet to the floor. Take the feet, the legs long, hands are behind. So you're in this Dandasana with the hands behind. You can turn your hands in whatever way works for you. Now feel for the little arch in your back. You want that little bit of arch in your back. So we call it neutral pelvis, right? So the pelvis is turning anteriorly towards the front. And then when you feel like you have the little bit of arch in your back, maintain that as you walk your hands forward. And wherever you're going to stop, wherever you lose that arch. Okay? So now press your whole leg as much as possible into the floor. Press your heels into the floor. Toes, all 10 toes pointed back at the shins in the same degree. And then from here, you can fold forward as your capacity. At some point, the spine will round as you come into more of a Paschimottanasana. Great, and then we'll walk our hands back alongside of the body. Take your hands underneath your legs as you lower yourself back down. Draw your knees into your chest, if that feels nice, or stretch the legs long. You might even take a block underneath the sacrum. But feel or sense or get that connection with the inner landscape of your body and what would kinesthetically be pleasing right now, aesthetically pleasing for you to finish your practice. So you might be ready just to come to Shavasana, in which case you could press lightly on the back of your head and tuck the shoulder blades under, palms up towards the ceiling and feet falling out. You might like a figure 4 to open the outside of the hip. You could play with this figure 4 by starting with the one foot on the floor, the other ankle crossed. And I've got that little pelvis, the correct pelvic tilt here. So what happens is I bring my knees up into my chest. I kind of lose that. So can you maybe just Get that little pelvic tilt again, as if you were creating a little arch underneath your back for the sliver of paper. Feel how that might feel different. And then you could tease the bent knee just away a little bit and see how that feels, what sensation in your hip, the bent leg. Draw the navel up and in so the core is helping keep everything safe and engaged. You can work a twist here if you like. So the twist could come from the figure four, or you could just stack your knees over your hips and twist in both directions. Just allow yourself to follow the lead of your own desires, your own bodily desires. And we'll come back to our backs. Coming back to the inner landscape of you. Thinking about something that's important to you or desire that you have. And identifying where do you feel that in your body? The practice that we engage in is often a practice that transforms us from the outside in. So we work in our bodies and we work through the sheaths of the body, and we work from the muscular and the skeletal, and we start to get a little bit further into the more subtle layers. And we find that there's a transformation that takes place. And often that transformation is in the heart. And what a wondrous thing that is, no matter how you land there. And the thing we know as well, or we experience, I believe, is that transformation is, there's loss in transformation. When things transform, as we have seen so dramatically with weather, when things transform, there is loss. And the loss needs to be mourned before the transforming into can be relished. So we need to let that grieving take place for the transforming into to be relished. And we see this so dramatically in weather. And so even though it's been a very hard summer in here in the United States, we could look to that as a gift for this learning. Please stay in Shavasana as long as you like, or you can return up to your seat. Bringing your hands to your heart center. May the merit of our practice encourage all beings to unveil that hidden brilliance that lies within us all. Namaste.